Assalamu alaikum, Ijaz.
Wa alaikum assalam. So I'm just curious, why would the Christian be defending the New Testament when it does not go back to the disciples or the apostles?
Thank you.
I reject that assertion considering the amount of evidence we do have for the gospel accounts being original.
Please give me one primary evidence that the gospel accounts can be accounted for by a single disciple or apostle.
Okay, so besides the early church attestation from that's what we have. The wide range of attestation from church fathers, those students of the disciples, of the apostles. For example, Justin Martyr. Justin Martyr accounts of the memoirs of the apostles and their students, right? Referring to the writings of the apostles and then their students, right? So this would be...
Beautiful. He says memoirs of the apostles, but does he name a single gospel?
Nope. Okay, who are the apostles of Ijaz?
Who does Justin Martyr say the memoirs are by? I don't want to guess. You said you had direct evidence. What is this direct
well, now
evidence?
You're shifting the goalposts, right? You didn't ask
No,
for that.
I don't want assertions.
For early attestation.
No, he said
I asked for primary evidence. Primary evidence. So you don't have to change my words. I know what I said. So your primary evidence is a guy in the 2nd century that doesn't name a single gospel author or gospel.
So no. What we do have is quotations from the gospel accounts, right? And we're told the gospel accounts are authored by the apostles and then the students of the apostles, right? Which would fit with what we have now.
Does Justin Martyr quote one? Does Justin Martyr name one gospel, please? It's a simple question.
No, but he does limit what the gospels can be.
Okay, does he name a single gospel author or a single gospel?
I didn't mention that, no.
So then how do you know he's referencing the gospels as you have them today
by
based on the uncials of the 4th century?
By his quotation from, I think it's the Gospel of Matthew and Gospel of John. There are 2 instances of this.
He only quotes 2 gospels? That's what you had 4. And just to be clear here, Justin Martyr does not directly quote any single gospel. He paraphrases general phrases which circulated among the Kerugma. So unless you have a direct quotation that a single critical text uses to determine the variant unit from the Gospel of Matthew or from the Gospel of John in any critical edition via a quotation from Justin Martyr, you would be wrong, manifestly so.
Run that back. I have a comment. Run that back. That last thing you said. Last little chunk.
Yes, I'm gonna go slowly for the Christians in the room so that they can understand me clearly. There is not a single variant unit of the Greek New Testament that depends or uses Justin Martyr's paraphrases as a primary determinant evidence to decide what the text does and does not say from the 2nd century CE.
No, you didn't say that. You said more than that.
I said exactly that in just different words, same thing. Keep up.
No, you said more because I want to comment on your appeal to Q theory, which I find laughable.
I didn't appeal to Q whatsoever in the things that I just said.
Then you refer to, Kerugma, sorry. Kerugma or tradition, right?
Right, so Kerugma, but not Q, because Q is specifically a part of the Kerugma. You confused the two. Did I mention Q? No. So why did you say I did? Just try to be honest, Bradley. Come on.
Okay. Well, besides putting 2 arguments from silence, saying, well, he didn't quote from all 4, again, Ijaz, that's what you like to do in your video against me, argument from silence from the Gospel of Thomas, and now here, no shocker. Can you prove that this oral tradition was circulating?
Firstly, I didn't reference anything from the argument from silence. When you say that, just to correct you, when you use the argument from silence, you have the expectation that evidence would not be there. But when you give me quotations in the form of paraphrases, you expect the paraphrases to refer to something back which was in history. So that would not be a legitimate use of the argument from silence. I'm pretty sure we did this in high school, grade 6 or something. Secondly, I don't have to defend the oral tradition. I don't believe in it, but you as a Christian do, because you think that this is where the Gospels come from. I don't. I think the Gospels are manifestly mystical fables.
You just got appealing to it, right? You said
I didn't appeal to any of it.
Oral tradition, and you couldn't substantiate that. And I'm asking you to substantiate that.
Okay, so Even, what's his name? Even Papias demonstrates that there was an oral tradition. He listened to he was an ear witness. I don't know about you, but if you're an ear witness, you can't read with your ears, you hear from them. But maybe I'm just mistaken. So how does Papias become an ear witness? By reading? Please tell me. And by the way, I didn't appeal to only a written tradition or only an oral tradition. That is your words, not mine. Nor did I mention Q, nor did I make an argument from silence, nor did I reference the videos with your insults. So please try to calm yourself down. It's not a church. You can take your time. Please respond directly to what I say, not what you think I said. And just to correct you, the original question was, what primary evidence do you have for any of the four gospels being from the apostles or disciples? You jumped to the 2nd century and couldn't give me a direct quote. Thank you.
Okay, well, again, you're presupposing what kerugma is, right? And you couldn't prove that. You just say, well, there's oral tradition. That's not evidence for your claim.
I didn't say that.
You did use an argument from silence. Why? Because what we see here is Justin Martyr quotes from. We see, oh, well, Justin Martyr here, right, a student of the apostles, is saying, well, early church father is referring to the author of the Gospels as being the apostles and their students, and then quotes from 2 of them. You say, well, why not all 4? Does he have a quote from all 4? He just got them describing there's 4 authors, there's 4 gospel accounts. Now you're saying there are only 2 quotations. That's besides the point, Ijaz, right? Mentioning he didn't quote from 2 of the Gospels is not evidence for him not believing those of the Gospels weren't authored by the students of the apostles or vice versa, right? So that is an argument from silence. And you didn't substantiate your appeal to kerugma, right? You mentioned there is an oral tradition. I don't deny there's an oral tradition, right? I'm saying substantiate your appeal to kerugma because there's certain theories surrounding that. I did misspeak on Q. I'll retract that. I misheard you. That's my bad.
So thank you. Secondly, I didn't say that only 2 gospels are quoted. I actually denied that they're quoted. I actually said to you that they are paraphrased from a general tradition. And we know that a general tradition exists because of what the Gospel of John literally says. You believe quite literally that he says in that many things were said and done which were not recorded in the Gospels. Secondly, we also know from your own tradition that they wrote down many things which actually did not occur as per Origen in the 2nd century. If you can quote Justin Martyr, I can definitely quote Origen, who says that the authors of the Gospels, the evangelists, made up things as to their own mind what they decided was theologically true. For me, as a Muslim, that's called fables, that's called lies, and that's called misquotations. Thirdly, I don't have to appeal to the kerugma. I already demonstrated that with Papias. But wait a second. Do you even accept Papias? Didn't Eusebius and Origen rely on Papias? Can you give me a single author other than Papias who is the first person to list any of the authors of the Gospels? So are you denying Papias as an ear witness? And what does ear witness mean? When he says he does anacresis, what does that mean? How does that impact my arguments? And no, it's not an argument from silence. You made the claim that Justin Martyr quoted Gospels. Therefore, you expect the quotations to exist. Had you not expected the quotations to exist, that would be a valid argument from silence. I put the claim forward to you. He does not name a single Gospel author, nor does he name a single Gospel. And if he did know them, he would very well damn know how to write their names. John, Luke, Mark, and Matthew. Not that hard to write. If he can write anything, he can write 4 names. It's not that hard. And if he cared about evidence and the conveyance of evidence, he would note that down. But as a Christian, we both know that he more believes in spiritualism as opposed to direct evidence. So just to be clear to the audience, I asked our Christian friend here for primary evidence of the Gospel's authorship, and he says, well, Ijaz, talk to me about kerugma. If that's not a definition of changing the goalpost, I don't know what is.
Okay, yeah, so I didn't do that at all. I appealed to Justin Martyr. Primary evidence, if you're referring to the 1st century, we don't have that kind of writing. It doesn't exist.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't have any issue admitting that.
Thank you.
Now, in regards to Origen, Origen's an arch heretic. All right, so he's not just wrong on that, but on many things. So I reject Origen for most of what he teaches, although he is a witness to early church history. That's how I treat him. I don't reject Papias. I don't know where that came from, the mentioning of Papias or of Papias. I don't know if I said anything regarding rejection of that, but I'm not sure that came from. And Ijaz, I'll comment quickly, and this is going in circles at this point, but I'll comment quickly that Justin Martyr identifies who the authors are, right? Now, obviously, he says who they are. Now, you're saying, well, he didn't say the names. He didn't say their names. He didn't give Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Again, this is kind of posing that information can be only given one way, which is ridiculous. An idea can be communicated more than one way, right? What does the earliest evidence show of who the apostles were or who the students were, right? Well, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and we have the mention of Peter and then teaching Mark things. And then from that, we have the, I don't know exactly where it's at for Justin Martyr. I'm trying to reference it. But we have the apostles and their students. And so trying to say, well, why does he do it this way? That's not a rejection or a refutation of the information, right? It's appealing to an exact word fallacy, which is common with Muslims.
So that's not an exact word fallacy. That's literally an appeal to fallacy. And you'll notice here, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I asked him, I hope you guys notice this. I point out Origen as a historical witness documenting the fact that the gospel authors made up things. And he says, well, no, I don't trust that guy because he's a heretic. I'm not appealing to him as a theologian. I'm appealing to him as a historical witness. And you yourself testified using the exact words. Yes, he testified to the history of the early church. So thank you for accepting that he is a historian within the 2nd century, the 3rd century CE. And he plainly and directly says that evangelists made up things as they wanted. Secondly, no, you don't have primary evidence. Justin Martyr does not name a single one of them. Now, why does he have to name one of them? Because we know at this time, especially in Justin Martyr's time, you have people like Glaucius, according to the Pinarian of Epiphanius of Salamis, claiming that Peter taught him that Christ was not crucified, and he gave this information to Basilides. So no, this would be incorrect information from your part. There were competing gospels, competing narratives, competing ideas at this time, and simply saying that something was from the apostles is an appeal to generalization. He can't give specific names because they simply did not exist. The only other person beyond him in the 2nd century CE to initially name a single gospel author comes 130 years after Christ in the form of Irenaeus. So no, you don't have 1st century primary evidence, thank you, nor do you have 2nd century primary evidence, and this is the problem with Christianity. I can't believe in a religion that's based on hearsay.
Okay, we mentioned fables earlier on, and I'll address that in a minute. How it's inconsistent with your Quran. You mentioned Origin, though, again.
Are we changing to the Quran now?
No,
I'm talking about the Bible. Have you given up?
I'm going to Origin.
Are you dominating Yesu Quran?
Okay. No.
Okay.
I'm appealing to Origin now.
Then stick to the Bible. Stick to the Bible. Thank you.
I didn't mention the Quran. Origin. Do you know why?
You just did mention the Quran. You said the words Quran just now. What are you talking about?
You said it and we heard it. Everyone heard it.
I hope this is being
recorded.
Ironic,
but I'm going to go to an Origin. I'm not planning on going to the Quran. I can do it later on. Origin. I'm discussing Origin right now. Origin, what does he do? Do you know why Origin mentions the theologians, right? Or, sorry, the apostles, right? Or the gospel authors made stuff up. Do you know why he believes that? Or why he said that?
Is this going to be begging the question now? I'm asking about primary evidence.
No, I'm asking you if you know.
I'm telling you that Origin plainly says that the evangelists made up things because the direct contradictions in the Gospels cannot be reconciled, and hence they appeal to mysticism, which, as you would know, the Orthodox Church follows to this very day, down to every letter, dot of an iota. So do you want to answer the question, primary evidence, or are you going to ask me about Origin? If you're going to ask me about Origin, I'm going to start having to bill you for teaching you about your own religion.
Okay, yeah. So no, I didn't appeal back to that. My question was, why does Origin say that? In Origin, being an arch heretic, he presupposes the Gospels are not harmonious, right? These contradictions that he presupposes have been answered since then, have been answered during his time. Harmonization of the Gospel accounts was an early thing in church history, right? Origin, on his, again, him being an arch heretic, rejected the normal stream of thought and did this, right? Now, mind you, earlier you tried to appeal to primary sources, and now you're playing to Origin. Right, so you're appealing to evidence that you can't even meet by your own standard. This is inconsistent.
He's a primary historian for the church, and yes, I can appeal to him because, as you admitted, he was a church historian. I will appeal to a historian on history.
The 1st century are primary
and just to be clear here, and well, you raised Justin Martyr in the 2nd century, thus opening the window for the 2nd century discussion. And just to correct you here, what's his name? Origin actually demonstrates, he doesn't presuppose that the Gospels have contradictions. He actually lists what the issues are, tries to harmonize them, and when he fails to do so, he says the only way one can make sense of them is to appeal to mystery. And I don't deny that the man actually tried. You said he presupposes. Show me where he presupposes that they are contradictory.
Okay, well, you said that, not me. So I was trying to use your.
I didn't say he presupposed anything. Why are you lying?
I didn't say presuppose. I'm referring to contradiction.
You said presupposed. I swear by God, you said he presupposed there were contradictions.
If I said presuppose, I misspoke. Contradiction is what I meant to say. Right?
3rd time you've presupposed. Had to correct yourself. Why is that?
Okay, so Origin, these are really cheap shots. Origin, right, in his attempt to harmonize, all right, along with early sources that do harmonization, as you mentioned, is making stuff up. What does that then lead to? If there are things that can't be harmonized, what is that, Ijaz? You can do it. Come on.
It's called contradictions, and that's what the Bible is. Thank you.
You just got on a rant saying he didn't give contradictions. I just demonstrated yes. Now again, you're pulling to Origin as a primary source.
I said he said there were contradictions.
Third
what are you
century
talking
is a primary
about?
source for you. Justin Martyr, second century is not a primary source, but Origin is. Right? And our heretic who rejects harmonization is now your standard in the 3rd century. This is inconsistent.
Him being a heretic is irrelevant. He is a historian. Justin Martyr is not by definition a historian. He is a theologian. And yes, he made mistakes in both his theology and his quote-unquote history. You accept Origen as a church historian, as does Eusebius, who quotes him in the 4th century as well. So if he's good enough for Eusebius, he's good enough for Uncle Brother Ijaz. So if you have a problem with me quoting Origen, take a problem with Eusebius referencing him as well. He is a historian, and in that context, his theology is irrelevant to the claim of a historian, and we're asking for primary evidence in a historical manner. If you want to discuss theology and change the topic to that, I'm more than happy to school you there too, but I think I'm satisfied with history. What do the comments say? Viewers, what do you think about Bradley having to backtrack 3 times and forget what he said 10 seconds ago? I know I'm on opioids and I have a short memory, but this guy, goodness sake. So are you going to address the primary evidence claim or not?
I've addressed it 3 times now, and this is your spiel, Ijaz. You go into a discussion, say, you haven't addressed this when it's been addressed more than once.
Well, let's ask the audience.
Besides the Didache, and besides First Clement, that's all we have for the 1st century. All right? You're now
and does First Clement list any of the gospel authors?
You've now appealed to Origin as primary and reliable evidence. Oh, Eusebius quoted him. Eusebius quoted plenty of people. Right? He's not saying he gives a stamp of approval on everything they say. That's ridiculous argumentation. And
I didn't say that.
Not shocking considering your other arguments you've made against me.
So you can attack me personally, but that's not what I said. I said Eusebius quotes him as a historian in his context as a historical figure. I don't have to say quoted him in all capacities. That would be a generalization and poisoning the well from you. So you need to chill and calm down.
Eusebius, it's good enough for me. What are you trying to imply?
To quote him as a historian.
Inconsistent, Ijaz. Inconsistent.
To quote him as a historian, it would be inconsistent.
That's not happening anymore.
This is called poison in the well.
Why
is Origin poison in the well?
More reliable than Justin Martyr?
Okay, tell me about Justin Martyr lists any of the gospel authors by name, and then we can compare what Origin says about the gospel authors by name.
Okay, well, when I gave my reasoning, and I've already addressed this, now you're back.
Did he?
When I gave my reasoning for this,
I'm clarifying your error.
Reasoning for this, what was your response? Oh, well, it's not said these exact words. There's not exact names here. That is a fallacy. When I pointed out your fallacy, you said that my argument was an appeal to a fallacy. That's not a thing.
So stating who an apostle is an exact word fallacy.
So just to be clear, you're not addressing your fallacious argumentation. You're ignoring.
So just to be clear, demanding that this is an appeal to fallacy is an appeal to fallacy. Just be clear here. It doesn't matter what Bradley thinks. You can appeal to him the other time. You have the Holy Spirit. Use that for now. So if you say that I asked you for primary evidence of him listing who the authors of the Gospels are, and your direct answer from that, directly following that, was members of the apostles. So you understood what I asked. You understood what I was looking for, and then you answered incorrectly. I called you out on that, and then you say it's an exact word fallacy. If you didn't mean to give an incorrect answer, then you have to atone for the sin that you have just committed. Don't blame me for your mistake. My question was specific and direct, and the young sister above you had to correct you. I asked you for primary evidence. You said members of the apostles. That is not a primary evidence because you can't identify who is an author from that information. You simply cannot. Everyone is an apostle of someone. Everyone is a disciple of someone else. How do we know this? From the Penarian. So please, can you be specific, or do you only have hearsay? If you only have hearsay, admit it and be proud of it. But don't sit here insulting me and belittling me because you can't answer the question. It's just that simple.
So now I've addressed this now 4 times, and what's happened here? You've gone back to the question over and over again, arguing fallaciously, right? After I've clarified this, just restating again, hopefully the Muslims will be deceived by your big words and argumentation and ignore your fallacies. That's what we're saying here. Now, in response, I've already clarified. I've already said this, again, 4 times now. I'm not arguing for primary evidence. I've said, from what I know right now.
Thank you.
In the 1st century, you said thank you over and over again, Ijaz. I've already answered it. Don't
worry.
I'm dancing around this as if I haven't confessed it already.
His original question was what primary evidence
source, considering that. Now you're saying, well, it's hearsay. Don't appeal to that. You were just appealing to Papias earlier on, right? And the Krugma, right? So now oral tradition can be used for you, but not for me. or Christian is valid for Ijaz, but not for Christians. That's inconsistent, Ijaz. You're being inconsistent. You want primary sources, but then appeal to the 3rd century for your argumentation. Right? I have the 2nd century. I go earlier, you go later. Be consistent with your appeal to historical sources. You're not doing that.
I accepted your appeal to Justin Martyr. He said members of the apostles. I asked you, did he specify anything? You said no. I used your own evidence against you for primary evidence. It's called proof by contradiction, but you didn't seem to understand that. Secondly, no, I didn't appeal to the kerugma as a primary evidence. It's called contradistinction in respect to the claim of Papias, who is an air witness. I don't know about you, but someone who says that they're an air witness is not reading, they're listening to things. So if Papias, and I asked you this, was Papias reliable? You said you didn't say he was unreliable, therefore you validated my claim. So it doesn't matter what you say contrary to that, you already conceded on the major points. And thank you, you don't have primary evidence. And like every other Christian, your faith depends on 2nd-hand and 3rd-hand sources, which by definition, from the time of Christ Jesus, when you do anacresis, this is known as hearsay. And I'm sorry, brother, my faith and my belief does not rely on hearsay. I'm happy to see you acknowledging that your belief primarily depends on hearsay. Takbir, Allahu Akbar for the Muslims.
Yeah, it's not on hearsay, but it is based on fallacious argument and reduction of scholarship. I already know that. Trying to restate this again for the sake of rhetoric is not going to work in an argument, right? It might be convincing to some. We see right past it. At this point, I think we're just going in circles now. I'm going to say something over and over again, and then respond back and forth with that. We've gone in a circle at this point. I don't know what's the no helicopters allowed thing.
The original question was if you had
Thabit, you're cute, man. You're handsome, mashallah. I want this recording afterwards. You get me, bro? Don't smile like that. No, don't hide your face. I want to see that beautiful smile, inshallah. Smiling is a charity.
Whenever you say
it's
that,
charity
brother,
according to Hadith.
I gotta get out the camera, man. Whenever you say that, subhanallah.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, I'm gonna finish my dinner. Dominic, sorry, what's his name? Bradley, it was nice to meet you. Itaches, I'll see you again, sister. And Thabit, keep that blue soap on, Habibi. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much,
Jazakumullahu khairan.
Ijaz.
Assalamu alaikum.